Paige, why don't you go ahead? Oh, I think you might be muted.
Thank you so much for welcoming me to the WebXR Summit. I'm delighted to be on this panel today. I am the founding director of Better World Museum and the Horizon Art Museum. In 2018, Facebook designated Better World Museum a brick and mortar space as being one of the top 100 impactful community groups happening. With their support, we closed Better World Museum, an 8,000 square foot space dedicated to creating more resilient communities using creative technology. And we created a traveling pop-up museum. So when COVID hit, we were wonderfully positioned in VR and had a real stable community built. So in 2019, I've been working as a pre-alpha Facebook Horizon creator, and I just finished the mini game accelerator program, and I'm part of the Oculus Launchpad program. I love being an avatar and person in the real world and in Horizon. To me, it's all real, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Paige. Welcome. And Danny.
Yeah, well, it's so exciting to be here talking about avatars, and especially around avatars and design. I've been doing this sort of stuff pre-internet, so I've been building VR companies and working with avatar technologies for nearly 30 years now. And I run a little platform called Universal Avatars, which is all WebXR based, but also a number of other platforms for 3D events, 3D learning and training. And I actually built a metaverse back in 2000 to 2012 called Exit Reality, a 3D web browser that converted every page on the internet instantly into a immersive virtual world, with the content of pages kind of being the procedural seed of the architecture. So I've been involved a lot. I've been involved with open standards with avatars as well, so I've got a lot to add there. But I think the design aspect of it is super interesting. I don't want to go too much on about myself. I'd really like to hear a bit more about Jin and his wonderful initiatives as well. So pass it along.
Hey, folks. Yeah, I've had a lifelong interest in open source and peer-to-peer tech. I've been in VR since the DK1 days, and really interested in, what is the open ecosystem. And so I've been building in the web VR scene since, web VR was a thing, I think 2014, 2015. And I'm especially interested in interoperability, how to make things less friction and more freedom for the user, and how can we bring our identities across, and how can we own things in the virtual worlds as well. So I publish a lot on my devlog, xrdevlog.com, for all the various projects and communities I'm currently part of. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into that. And actually, I'm going to hand it over to Chaos Princess. Christina, maybe you could introduce yourself and sort of your journey into working with avatars, and then hand it over to you to be able to moderate the rest of this panel.
Hello, thank you so much for having all of us, and my apologies, that was Murphy's Law. The minute I joined the stream, my VR rig crashed, so bear with me if I'm only in desktop now, and I'm super happy to be here. I'm coming to you from Tivoli Cloud VR, which is a social VR platform originally developed as High Fidelity by Philip Rosedale. And I have the pleasure of being the chief marketing shout-out girl of this platform. And I got into VR when the HTC Vive was pre-released in 2016. And actually, VR saved my social life. And I feel very comfortable in this avatar, even more comfortable than in my 3D scanned Dupe 3D avatar. and this one I originally designed in Fuse Mixamo, and then have like adapted it always in Blender and ported it to different platforms. And I actually almost feel more comfortable in my avatar than in my real life body. And this already leads to the first question I want to post to the round. So I see you've introduced yourselves already all, but could you introduce your avatar and tell us more what it means to you in terms of likability and self-representation?
Well, I'd be happy to jump in there and talk about my avatar is actually many avatars. So being part of many communities over many, many years in virtual worlds and VR and games as well, I have different avatars for different environments, basically. Some very attached to, some that are very personal because I more express my personality through them, but others are more professional. So I run an events company and my avatars there will be a little more business-like and a little bit more reserved in their expression as well. So I think horses for courses, as they say, avatars for the appropriate time and place.
Yeah, for mine, the base model of mine is CC0. And so I'm really interested in just open licensing and how to build things on top and use a base model that many people can be familiar with to kind of, I guess, storytell some ideas of interoperability with, using a familiar asset.
I've always been really into being my avatar. Back in 2012, I designed an iPad drawing program prototype, and with it, I drew my avatar on my way to a museum conference. The museum conference actually then ended up hiring me to draw all the presenters' avatars for their social media platform profile pictures. And then for years after that, I was always asked to draw people's avatars, and I love it. Now in social VR, I remember really first connecting as an avatar in the Facebook Spaces program platform. Of course, I was in Second Life before, but I didn't love and connect with my avatar in the same way as when I was really in Spaces. I started really connecting with other people socially and feeling empathy and connection with people with presence. Since I've been in social VR platforms, from Rec Room to I've tried Neos and Altspace, and I spend most of my time in Facebook Horizon Worlds, a beta program. And there, my avatar always is an extension of who I am, what I wear, how I'm wearing my hair. And it's really me. And when I see other friends, I love connecting with them. I can feel the empathy and love and connection, not just from their presence, but in their avatar. I see love in their eyes, or care, friendship, or shyness, or different feelings. I can feel them just as palpably as I do in real life, and even kind of on platforms like this, right? But not as much as in VR. There's nothing like it. Like the other night, I saw my friend John, and we slapped hands for like 10 minutes, just like in greeting with each other, just because it felt so good, that haptic moment of connecting.
I'm totally on your track with this terms of embodiment. I even get like phantom sensations when hugging other people in the avatar, and this is something real life can't do. So therefore, I'm very glad to have this as a soothing pet during the pandemic. I'd like to get into a more practical topic. So if somebody's new to social VR, what recommendations would you give to them in creating an avatar? For once, I refer to like the design aspect, like Uncanny Valley versus fantastical avatars, furries versus human avatars. So how would you approach this from a design point of view? And also, I'd love to know, especially since the beautiful Fuse has now closed down, if you can recommend a favorite avatar creation tool, and if you maybe have strategies how to achieve the best interoperability with such an avatar creation tool or tools.
I think that's for Jin. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Jin, I saw you were working on a cool project.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of creating an avatar, I think one of the tools that I would recommend is, I could probably bring it up here. It's called Vroid Studio. And basically it's just, the thing that makes it different from something else than Ready Player Me is that you have full ownership over it. You can use it for commercial purposes and whatnot, and you can edit the hair, the body, the clothes. But what's really interesting about how you edit some of the clothing is, let me see if I could bring this up. Essentially, you have a set of base mesh models, and the clothing is all just texture editing on these bases. And so it's really easy to create your own like shirts. It's really easy to create cuts and layers with them as well. And there's over 1 million of these, and kind of uploaded to Vroid Hub, which is kind of like the Sketchfab of avatars. But it exports as a VRM file format, and there's tons of support for all sorts of different engines and virtual worlds that support it, as well as VTubing applications, which is what I'm using right now. It's that's how I discovered this file format, and it's all based on open standards. It's based on GLTF, so it's really nice in terms of just being based on something that's open, royalty-free, but as well as the licenses, the terms of use is all packed into the file itself. So in terms of bringing it from world to world, it's possible for the worlds to read the terms of use and license information of the avatar, which I thought was really cool. So it's kind of designed for interoperability. And yeah, It's really easy to bring across, and just use some plugins to bring it to VR chat if you wanted as well.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I need. Could you paste a link to that into the chat so that others can follow it too?
Yeah.
I also have like a shout out to give to Ready Player Me, like that company Wolf 3D, which also does great work on presenting like a really easy 2 minutes to use avatar builder for people who are like new to the technology. But I so much love your solution more, because I'm really looking for something which one can influence by oneself better. But I'd also love to hear Danny's and Paige's takes on what's your favorite avatar creation tool, and how do you achieve interoperability?
Well, I can talk a little bit about Universal Avatars, which is a WebXR avatar platform. It's probably not as elaborate as Vroid or another set of or Ready Player Me, but it's purposefully that way because we scale to many thousands of people being in 3D WebXR worlds in any browser on any device. And that really requires some incredible performance optimization. So we have full diverse and inclusion avatar library of over 1 billion style combinations to choose from. And that suits most people. And the way that the avatar kind of system is built is there are templates for geometry like clothing and the body itself. But then each of the clothing is just a texture, which can be modified very easily with people with just Photoshop skills rather than 3D modelers or people that need excessive skills. It means they can push their creative influence really quickly and easily to see that change and difference. It's pretty early days with the Universal Avatar platform, but it works everything from Internet Explorer 11 all the way up to all the latest AR and VR headsets with thousands of people in the same experience. But design is one of the challenges. I have educational clients, enterprise clients, and then we have people that just want to have social fun. And we get so many different requests from people regarding policies on clothing and policies on the way people can look, cultural and business related. So there's a lot of challenges there in being able to control what can be shown and what can't. And pretty much for me, I see the web as a parallel for how avatars will be used. You go to certain sites, they allow you to do certain things and not other things. There's moderation that's aligned with what the site's purpose is usually. And that's what I see as a future for avatars. We really, more than just being able to have a design of an avatar, we need to have the flexibility of being able to turn things on and off as appropriate and taking things with you some of the time, but not all of the time. One of the virtual worlds we run called Twinity, which is a mashup of something like Second Life meets Google Earth, and people have virtual apartments and they buy virtual goods. They live in virtual Berlin and New York, etc. There are items which are only considered adult. So if you've got a filter on, you can't see those items that people are wearing. So these sorts of considerations from a design perspective are really important, not just on the basic how can I make something look a certain way, but this extra level on top that will help with the adoption of avatars overall is something that I'm super passionate and interested on. Paige, maybe you've got some thoughts.
Well,
And Annie, put a link into the chat. That would be awesome.
Listening to you, I thought about challenges, design challenges, and different platforms' limitations. I'm currently, working primarily in Facebook Horizon Worlds, and there's like a limitation with player persistent variables. So I can't go from one world into the next world and still bring something with me that will personally identify me other than the preset wearables. So, I can wear my same jacket from one world to the next, but I can't bring a backpack full of really cool tools. And I want to bring something with me from one world to the next that says something about my identity and the things that are important to me. And so I've been kind of creating an illusion of that within gameplay, but I don't know how to bring a score over to one world to the next. So it's interesting, like the things one owns or feels connected to, and how do we carry that with us within different worlds or within even just in essence, right? So I was, just thinking about limitations and how platforms may or may not adapt this ease. And then while you were talking, I also started considering like safety issues. So like when you were talking about how one platform offers adult assets, different users or objects or spaces may have different safety concerns around them. And that is an interesting aspect also that, takes another turn from into maybe deeper into the uncanny.
I'd love to combine that mention with a question in the chat from Chris Fellows, who asks, any thoughts on NFT avatars? And now I'm wondering if NFTs and trading entities on the blockchain might be a good solution to guarantee that interoperability, guarantee safety, and also guarantee ownership. And I'd love to hear Jin's take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of research in this area, and there are starting to become like some NFT, like 3D avatar projects. Here's a couple right behind me. At the top is Meebits, which they started out as Vox files, but we're converting them all to VRM, and Crypto Avatars, which is kind of like one of one NFT avatars, which are also VRM. And one thing that's interesting is when you bring one of these avatars to another platform, it's like, how do you inspect the provenance of that thing? Because then it just becomes like another 3D model, and it's not an easy way to inspect like who owns it, where provenance meaning like the origin, the history of that object. So I think it's a lot of it's in an age of discovery and experimentation at the moment, but a lot of 2D NFT profile pic projects are starting to become 3D as well. I think I have something here. And what's interesting about that is, like people really love the 2D profile pics because you can bring them across Twitter and Discord, and but soon, they'll also be able to bring into like virtual worlds and as well as VTubing applications. So the same things that people like about how portable and ownable they are, it's just, expanding into more and more platforms. And I think it's also not just like about the buying something. I think it's like, sometimes I've just been kind of like looking at it and thinking about it from like the traits perspective. Like, what if it's not just like the exact replication of it, but rather like, what if you could boil it down to the traits, and then they could be like spawnable in any kind of universe, So it's like capturing the likeness of it versus the exact replica. I think that could be more interoperable as well. Whoops, let me change my screen. Yeah, here we go. So like this is my Twitter profile pic. But if you boil it down to just like the traits, it becomes kind of more malleable, more, you could just reimagine it in different worlds just based on that, and kind of more creative that way.
I think that's a really cool approach. I was talking to someone not so long ago about the aspect of traits in regards to accessibility. So, various components to a person's abilities that would apply to using a platform in an accessible fashion. And that aligns almost as a straight, extension of that data. So you can say, oh, this person's this height and this capabilities, and you push these traits in with it, and you have got a portable avatar that can just adapt to a system that it goes into. Ready Player Me uses a picture of your face and creates a likeness from it, and Spatial does the same, and there's a few other platforms and avatar libraries that do it. But take that even further to your, the things that you like about your avatar and try and recreate them in other platforms as far as their extent allows, would be a very interesting solution, but still giving the other platforms the capacity to expand in their kind of environment. For example,
I love that idea because it really guarantees also like the individuality one always seeks for. I want to close this panel with a question which also goes into the blockchain direction. So we have seen that we feel like very comfortable in our avatars, as it is a representation of our true inner selves. And this also opens up great possibilities, for example, for trans people who can like try out their new body in VR. And it's for me just a big blessing. Still, if we have the trouble of like as avatars, we can't really establish trust. So if there are legal disputes, for example, if I only disclose my avatar's name, Chaos Princess, nobody knows where to send their lawyers if I just resold their avatar 1,000 times. So my question is, there's this this catch-22 between Facebook's real name policy, which is like a good tool to prevent grieving or legal disputes, and on the other hand, there's like this total privacy idea, which lets us stay safe in our virtual bodies. So my question is like, what's your way to go down which road, like privacy or real name policy? And Jin, do you see if trust for a virtual persona could also be established on the blockchain?
Yeah, I kind of have a analogy of this related to this. I think it's a Japanese proverb about having three faces. First, you show to the world. The second, you show to your close friends and family. And third, you never show anyone. And it's the truest reflection of who you are. And I kind of see the metaverse in being broken down into these three layers. The layer 3, which is global, which I think a lot of the virtual economy happens, content discovery, and that's where a lot of like blockchain, business activity can take place. But here in the shared layer, you have smaller interconnected small worlds where I think a lot of WebXR, like, web rings and just like, MySpaces and individual websites will emerge from, and it's just kind of like spinning up a server, and you have more freedom, flexibility, and privacy. And then the local layer, which is the kind of the most highest expectation of privacy, the one closest to the metal, the operating system, in which total freedom, you can do anything. It's so I think these things are going to be there's going to be different expectations at these different layers, and the lower the layer goes, the more higher expectation of privacy, and as the norm.
Yeah, I agree with Jin that the metaverse will encompass the full spectrum of privacy to complete anonymity all the way to full disclosure.
Paige, any last thoughts before we close up here?
No, but I'm so glad that it will be a full rainbow grayscale. I do consider that problems may arise with cultural or racial appropriation, and that is its own interesting thing to consider in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, both Christina, Chaos Princess, and Danny, and Paige and Jen, for taking us on this little exploration of avatar culture, interoperability. Really fascinating discussion. So we'll send you off and into the metaverse, and we'll see you in our interoperable worlds.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
And